You know, in my Lord of the Rings video that I did late last season, I told a story about when I was in sophomore year of high school and my social studies teacher, Mr. O'Brien. He had gone out to see Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. And when he came into school the next day, he basically told all of us, he said, you guys have to go out to theaters to see this movie. He said, because this is the great epic of your time. He said, for me, it was Star Wars. For you guys, it's Lord of the Rings. Is Dune Part 2 as good as Lord of the Rings? No, it is not, and I'll get into why it's not. But I will say that, in my opinion, it is the greatest visual wonder, the greatest immersive, elaborate, believable, lived-in feeling world since Lord of the Rings. I'll get into the negatives first, because I did really like this movie, so just get those out of the way. The nitpicky thing is Christopher Walken. The dude's in the movie, like, very briefly. It's like a 2 hour and 45-minute movie, and I'll be damned if the guy's got like 10 minutes of screen time, but him as the Emperor, and it's not even that he did a bad job, it's just that, like, of anybody on earth, why did you pick Christopher Walken? Because he just, every time I hear him talk, when I hear his voice, it doesn't matter like if he's being intense or what, he sounds like some sort of a, like, I don't know if he's from New York, he sounds like a New Yorker, like a sarcastic ass New Yorker that is delivering like a really dry response to something. It was just a curious choice for me. I mean, he's not like the last person I picked to play the Emperor, but he's far from the first. I don't know. I just found it kind of perplexing. The other thing is, you feel this movie's runtime. You really do. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it feels like 2 hours and 45 minutes. I heard that for a lot of people, because the movie does sort of happen in acts, like there's the first act where they're all sort of training on Arrakis, like, you know, to ride the worms and stuff like that. We'll get back to that. There's the second act that's on the Harkonnen planet. And some people said that that was the point in the movie where it sort of like slowed to a halt. Not for me, man. I thought that that was awesome. But just after that, like before the third act, there's this like solid chunk of the movie where I'm like, oh man, holy moly, jeez. I mean, granted, I didn't get much sleep the night before, so I'm sure that didn't help. I would recommend going to see an earlier showing if you are going to go see it, maybe caffeinate a little bit. That sequence where Paul Atreides first rides the worm is insane. It looks so real. You have to see it in like high def XD, biggest screen, best sound system you can see. It is worth it. Like the rumbling and stuff, when he jumps off that cliff and there's just, you see him disappear into the sand and there's just this enormous thing and he can hardly even tell what's going on. And then even when he gets his bearings and the sand just like coming over everything, you feel like you're on that damn thing with him. I mean, it's so cool. This was handled with extreme care, and movie studios today especially can learn a lot from this. Everything on the Harkonnen planet is really cool. About the visuals, I don't want to get into that because that is a bit of a spoiler. You just have to experience it for yourself, but what they did for just the entire environment was really cool. The dude who played Elvis, who plays the sociopathic nephew of the Baron, I forget the actor's name, but I will definitely put it on the bottom here. He was great, man. He was chilling. He was like just a complete psychopath. You probably heard that left and right. The performance was excellent. He had sort of like the cadence of Stellan Skarsgård playing Baron Harkonnen, and it worked. It didn't feel like gimmicky. It felt like, as much as he doesn't really give a shit about anybody but himself, as much as he's a narcissist, he looks at his uncle as like, you know, an intimidating figure of power, and he looks to sort of mimic that in a certain way. It's just so gigantic in scope, and it feels like a lived-in world. There's some humor in the movie, but the humor isn't like Disney Marvel tongue-in-cheek kind of humor. It's like authentic, and that makes it a little bit more funny. And again, it makes the world feel a little bit more organic. I would also like to point out that this movie had a budget of $190, and last I checked, I believe that it's already up to $211 million. And I mean, that might just be domestic. I'm not sure if that's worldwide. Disney, take notes. Can you find allegories in this film? Certainly. Definitely colonization. The Fremen are very much like, you know, they come across as like sort of like they're based on Middle Eastern cultures. I think the original Dune novel was based on Lawrence of Arabia. If I'm wrong about that, feel free to correct me. I think that's what it was, though. So that's very deliberate, you know, but there's nothing in it. The movie just kind of lets itself happen. It just unfolds, and it allows you to just go on this ride. It doesn't feel like it at any point that it is yelling in your ear or buzzing in your ear like a mosquito with some kind of a hidden message, or it's just a story. It's an epic that you're supposed to go out and have an excursion. And I've said this before on this channel. That's the point of a movie, to go out and to leave this world behind and to have an excursion, to forget about everything and to go out and just live somewhere else for 2-3 hours. Disney could learn a lot, because they spend about $100 million more on movies that either look like absolute dog shit or have some sort of a heinously unsubtle message that they're trying to cram down your throat, and nobody goes out to see them. And there's been some talk lately, even on Chris Duckman's channel, about how he's concerned for theaters and the theater going experience, that we've gotten so used to streaming platforms that just we can get everything at our fingertips now, that he's worried that there's no incentive anymore for people to go out to theaters. Dune Part 2, movies like this are incentive for people to go out to theaters, because it's worth it to go out and spend the extra money and see an epic like that on the huge screen with the awesome sound and let yourself be totally transported. Movies can still do very well, all right? But just don't produce crap. 2023 was a crap year for movies, and that's why largely Hollywood lost a lot of money. People didn't go to see it. So I'm kind of hoping that, movies like Top Gun Maverick and this are gonna kind of awaken people a little bit. They're going to take a little bit more time, maybe not hyperinflate their budget, making some, preachy piece of crap, and sort of like pull it back a little bit and be sort of like, okay, let's get some real writers on here. Let's get somebody who really respects the source material, somebody who's a real fan of the work. If you film it, they will come, This movie is proof positive of that. But yeah, guys, Dune Chapter 2, it was a hell of an adventure. I would definitely recommend, like I said, going to see it earlier or be caffeinated and make sure that you're well rested, because it's a long one. But yeah, that's my opinion on the film. Dune Chapter 2 was pretty freaking awesome. If you guys like this video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe if you want, and that's all she wrote.